today's lesson, we are going to talk about a very important concept in IB psychology, bias. If you're studying the IBDP Psychology 2027 syllabus, understanding bias is essential because it affects how research is conducted and how results are interpreted. Let's break down the topic in simple, clear way. First, what is bias? Bias is a systematic error in research. This means that something interferes in such a way that it distorts the result. Because of bias, research findings may become less accurate and even misleading. In psychology, our goal is to try conduct a research that is as objective as possible, but complete objectivity is extremely difficult. And this is where bias comes in. Number one, biases in psychological research can affect the validity and reliability of findings. Number two, understanding these biases help researchers design better studies and interpret results more accurately. In the IB syllabus, we focus on four main types of bias: researcher bias, participant bias, sampling bias, cultural bias. Let's understand each one clearly. The first is researcher bias. Researcher bias occurs when expectations, beliefs, or personal views of the researcher influence the results of the study. So, researcher bias occurs when the expectations, beliefs of the researcher influence the study's outcome. For example, let's say if I'm a researcher and while treating a patient, I believe that a certain therapy will work. Maybe in actual it is not working that significantly, but I will unintentionally interpret that yes, after this therapy, my patient is improving a lot. Maybe he is not. I am interpreting in a wrong way. Why? Because I am believing in this therapy. I am having biasness towards this therapy. This is called a researcher biasness. So, how to reduce researcher bias? First is use double-blind procedure. That is, in an experiment where neither the researcher nor the participant knows who is receiving the treatment. Second is participant bias. Participants can also influence research outcomes. This often happens when they try to guess the purpose of the study and change their behavior accordingly. Like number one, participant bias arises when participants alter their behavior based on their perceptions of the study. Number two, demand characteristics are cues that lead participants to guess the study's purpose and change their behavior accordingly. Number three, social desirability bias occurs when participants respond in a way they believe is socially acceptable rather than truthful. I will give you some examples to make you understand better. Demand characteristics. Now, participants behave in ways they think the researcher wants. So, participant thinks, oh, this researcher is looking out for something like kindness in the participants. Though I don't have much in me, but I can pretend so in this study. So here the participant got the hint, means the demand characteristics of the study, and now he is altering his behavior. Next is social desirability. Participants answer in a way that makes them appear more socially acceptable. This is participant biasness. Example, in surveys about smoking, drinking, or participants might underreport habits to appear healthier. This represents social desirability bias. So how do we reduce participant bias? Use deception, ethically of course. Use naturalistic observations where participants behave normally. Next is sampling bias. Sampling bias occurs when the sample does not represent the target population. For example, studying only university students and claiming the results apply to the entire human population. This is often referred to as the weird bias: Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic. How to reduce sampling bias? Use random sampling. Use stratified sampling. Next is cultural bias. Cultural bias happens when a researcher assumes that their own culture, norms, values are universal and applies them to other cultures. Example, Western cultures tend to value independence, but many Asian cultures value community and family. If we use Western definitions of normal behavior in other cultures, the results may be inaccurate. How to reduce cultural biasness? Conduct cross-cultural research. Avoid ethnocentrism, the belief that one's own culture is superior. Next is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency to interpret data in a way that confirms pre-existing beliefs. For example, a researcher who believes in the effectiveness of a new therapy might focus on positive outcomes while ignoring negative results. This is like only reading news articles that support your political views. Next is publication bias. Publication bias is the tendency for scientific journals to only publish articles that are new, popular, or have significant results. For example, when a journal only publishes articles that have a statistically significant result for the effectiveness of a type of therapy, people may not be aware of the research that demonstrates that the treatment is not effective. Next bias is androcentrism. Androcentrism is the tendency to view male behavior as the norm, often leading to the marginalization of female perspectives. For example, in Kohlberg's theory of moral development, Kohlberg's stages were based on male participants, leading to the assumption that females were less morally developed. Gilligan 1982 criticized this, arguing that women's moral reasoning is different but not inferior. Next is ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism is the tendency to view one's culture as the standard, so other cultures appear different, abnormal. For example, in Western cultures, major depressive disorder is more likely to present as negative patterns of thinking and low mood. However, in East Asia, it may present as somatic, like stomachache, headache. Therefore, if you were to judge an East Asian person based on Western standard, they may be misdiagnosed. So, how to spot bias in studies? Look for cues. Are there any hints that the researcher or participants knew the study's purpose? Check the sample. Is it representative of the target population? Examine the data. Are there signs of selective reporting or interpretation? Why does bias matter? Bias can make research findings less valid. In IB exams, whenever you discuss a study, you should identify any possible bias. Explain how it may have affected the results. Suggest how the study could be improved. This shows critical thinking, which IB examiners reward highly. Example to use in exam study like Loftus and Palmer 1974, leading questions in memory. Possible bias, sampling bias, the study used only university students. Then participant bias, participants were aware they were in the lab experiment. Mentioning these points improves your evaluation. So the conclusion is that bias is anything that reduces the accuracy or fairness of research. A good psychologist always identifies bias, controls bias, evaluates research with awareness of bias. Implications of bias. Limited generalizability, findings based on biased samples may not apply to other cultures or genders. Misinterpretation. Gender bias can lead to underrepresentation of women in research, affecting the validity of findings. So if you found this video helpful, please like, share and subscribe, and comment below as well which type of bias was the easiest for you to understand.